I'm Carol Coletta, and this is Smart City. How do you create green space in one of the most industrial states in the nation? Tom Woiwode knows. As the director of the GreenWays Initiative for the Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan, he's raised more than $125 million to build and maintain trails, orchards, and greenways throughout southeastern Michigan. He'll tell us what greening a city can do to build community and civic engagement. And Mary Sue Barrett of the Metropolitan Planning Organization tells us where she'd like to see the stimulus money go and how spending regionally, and not just state by state, can pay bigger dividends. All that plus financial advice from Walker Smith today on Smart City, right after this news. You're listening to Smart City. I'm Carol Coletta. My first guest has spent his life making the world a greener place. Tom Woiwode is a champion of conservation. He was the founding director of the Nature Conservancy of Michigan and has worked for decades to preserve natural spaces. So when the Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan launched its GreenWays Initiative, Tom was the obvious choice to run the program. Tom joined us from his office in Detroit to tell us how landscape can connect disparate communities. Tom, with all the challenges Detroit faces, why have you made greenways a priority?
Well, it's important to understand, Carol, that greenways create a variety of opportunities. It goes well beyond simply the investment in the landscape. It includes or provides benefits that include healthy experiences. Studies show that greenways provide an economic stimulant to communities. Property values are increased. They help people get out and engage in the community, and it creates a social or cultural engagement that is quite different than any other experience. And so the Community Foundation, when we started looking at this program back in 2000 and 2001, we recognized that it was a way to improve the infrastructure and connect communities, link communities, so that communities would actually start working together for the benefit of the region as a whole.
Describe the GreenWays Initiative, the big vision for it.
The GreenWays Initiative is an initiative of the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan. First, I should say that the Community Foundation supports activities that invest in the broad quality of life throughout the 7 counties that surround and include Detroit, which includes roughly half the population of the state of Michigan. And the GreenWays Initiative focuses on the design, planning, and construction of greenways, that being non-motorized pathways that link communities, resources, and people. The grand vision is to connect communities and connect individuals and neighborhoods to the resources within those communities to ensure that people have equal access to all of the assets that the region has to share.
And when you began thinking about this in 2000, 2001, where did the idea emerge? Who brought it to you? What was the thought behind greenways? Did someone see one at some point? Did you hear about it at a conference? What happened?
Well, a couple of things were going on at that time. Back in the late 1990s, communities around the country increasingly were looking at creating more walkable neighborhoods and more walkable cities. And studies were showing, even back then, 10, 15 years ago, that as young professionals were coming out of school, looking for places to locate and to begin their professional careers, they were more interested in communities that provided opportunities for them to get out and enjoy those communities in a more social way. So we here at the Community Foundation started taking a look at some of the ways that different municipalities were responding to those issues, and discovered that a lot of the communities had become much more aggressive in investing in their infrastructure to create those walkable opportunities. And as we started taking a closer look at some of those community investments, it became abundantly clear that for those communities that were aggressively pursuing greenways, it was, again, beyond just simply the walkable nature of those greenways. It It was creating the opportunities for people to socialize in different ways. It was a physical transformation of the landscape. And in fact, this being back in the late 1990s, the mayors of Denver and Pittsburgh at that time touted greenways as their most important economic development tool. So seeing all of the things that other communities were doing and looking at the different ways that they were approaching it, we then began to explore how it might work here in Southeast Michigan, and that's what prompted the development of the GreenWays Initiative.
Talk to me a little bit about the mechanics of a greenway. How do you acquire the land for greenways? Do you have a major plan for the greenway in its ultimate form, and then you slowly acquire land as you can and ask for donations, and then, I mean, how does it then transform from acquired land to actual greenway that people can use for walking and biking and running?
Because we serve approximately 250 municipalities here in Southeast Michigan, we thought that it would probably be fatal, actually, if the first product out of our program were a regional plan for greenways. As you well know, that obviously creates some concern on the part of some of the municipal leaders that outsiders are telling them what to do with their community. So rather than approach it that way, we had a broad framework of what could potentially be done in Southeast Michigan, and we then made available our resources. Again, it's important to understand that the Community Foundation funds things. We don't actually implement the projects on the ground. So we then provided those resources, both the financial resources and professional resources, in cases where there was some lack of understanding, if you will, about design issues. We would bring experts in and make those experts available to communities. And gradually, the communities that expressed interest, as they started building these greenways, they in fact started building the network. And so the greenways system that is now being built in Southeast Michigan, in its initial stages, looked like a bunch of fragmented parcels of land, but gradually, as it's taking place over the last 7 or 8 years, you can now start to see the interlocking of those separate parts. So it's actually starting to take on a much more connected nature. Now, back to your other question about how it starts actually at the local level, you're right. If there are parcels of land that are privately held and that would be appropriately included in a greenway system, certainly there needs to be some land acquisition, some negotiation with those private parties. In many instances, greenway is a bit of a misnomer because in gray communities, if you will, in urban tracts of land like the city of Detroit, a greenway is a characterization of a linked system. So it isn't actually green, it is a connection that links a variety of, again, neighborhoods and resources. The key there is that you're creating the links, which means that many of these greenways that are being developed are actually being developed on already existing public land, and so it's a policy issue more than a private acquisition issue.
Mm-hmm. Do you have to have so many miles of connected greenway before people start using it? Is there some minimum requirement to begin?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. It's clear that there was some considerable pent-up demand for this because we have examples of a couple of projects in particular where the people who were watching the greenway being developed in their neighborhood literally followed the paving truck. As the truck was paving a particular area, they were walking behind it. So it sounds trite to say that if you build it, they will come, but in fact, that seems to have been the case in just about all of the investments, all of the projects that we have supported. It gets really exciting, though, when you start seeing the connections between communities, and that's when the communities collectively actually really embrace the project, when they can start seeing how it affects their community directly rather than thinking about it again as these discrete parcels of land.
Are issues such as separated biking, walking, a problem for you?
Yes, they are, or could be, I should say. Occasionally you'll find where the corridor is being used by both groups, and there needs to be a way to accommodate bikers as well as walkers. And in those instances where it is a single lane